کنگره ایالات متحده آمریکا، اجلاس زیر کمیته نظارت و تحقیقات، استماع طاهر بومدرا و سفیر لینکلن بلومفیلد درباره اشرف، لیبرتی و لیست آمریکا، 13 سپتامبر 2012، 23 شهریور 1391. طاهر بومدرا، مشاور ویژه یونامي درباره اشرف، ژوئیه 2010 مه 2012. رئیس اداره حقوق بشر یونامي، ژانویه 2009 ژوئیه 2010. مسئول نظارت بر وضعیت انسانی در اشرف از مارس 2009. سفیر لینکلن بلومفیلد، مدیر کل وزارت خارجه آمریکا 2001-2005، مسئول امور سیاسی نظامی و کنترل صادرات تسلیحات. اظهارات طاهر بومدرا در استماع کنگره آمریکا. از وقتی اشرف تحویل عراق و در واقع تحویل دفتر نخست وزیری شد، نقض فاحش حقوق بشر و استانداردهای انسان دوستانه شروع شد. وقتی از آنها میپرسیدیم چرا استانداردهای قبلی را رعایت نمی کنید، به من میگفتند که این افراد سزاوار حقوق بشر یا رفتار انسانی نیستند. با این حال نمایندگی سازمان ملل گزارش‌هایی میفرستاد که دولت عراق به تعهدات بین المللیش در مورد حقوق بشر عمل می کند. وقتی شروع به صحبت در مورد جابجایی اشرف به لیبرتی کردیم، رئیس به اصطلاح کمیته اشرف به یونامي و نمایندگان کمیساریا گفت: ما حقوق بشر و استانداردهای بشردوستانه را اجرا نخواهیم کرد. ولی باز ما گزارش دادیم که عراق تعهدات بین المللی را اجرا می کند. در اکتبر سال گذشته سومین نماینده ویژه دبیرکل به عراق آمد و یونامي را به نمایندگی سازمان ملل برای بستن اشرف تغییر داد و در این تغییر ناگهانی سیاست، منابع، پرسنل و وقت یونامي را به میزان 95% صرف کمک به دولت عراق برای بستن اشرف کرد. یک پول جدی مالیات دهندگان خرج شد تا از طرف دفتر نخست وزیری یونامي سیاست‌هایی را اعمال کند که اساساً مخالف اصول ملل متحد است. من به رئیس خود نماینده ویژه دبیرکل خاطر نشان می کردم که آنچه ما داریم می کنیم غیر قابل قبول است، ولی همیشه این جواب را می گرفتم که مثبت باش، یعنی چشمت را ببند و با ما کار کن. اما وجدانم به من می گفت یونامي به ناگهان به ابزاری برای نقض اصول و ارزش‌های خود تبدیل شده است.
This event is being held in two parts. The first will be a briefing by Mr. Andromeda. We'll be talking about conditions at Camp Liberty in Iraq and what the United Nations has been telling us about those conditions, whether the reports are accurate, and why the United Nations and the United States has been spinning the reports and downplaying Iraqi harassment of Camp Ashraf residents who are being moved to Camp Liberty. Camp Ashraf has been the home for decades to the MEK, a group of Iranian exiles who who are the enemy of the mullah dictatorship in Tehran. Under pressure from and in sympathy with Iran, the government of Prime Minister Maliki in Tehran ordered Camp Ashraf closed by the end of last year. So here the objective, and I agree with Mr. Boumedra on this, was to move the Iranian exiles not only out of Camp Ashraf, but out of Iraq itself, perhaps back to Iran, where they would be imprisoned, tortured, or killed. So I hope Mr. Boumedra will explain to us why the processing of the MEK for relocation to other countries was not done in Camp Ashraf itself. The 3,400 residents are being moved to a new site within Iraq called Camp Liberty. The new camp does not have the facilities of the old camp, which had been built up for over 7 decades by the residents, nor have the residents been allowed to bring all their possessions to the new camp. Just like other doomed souls on their way to the end, a humanitarian crisis was created where there never should have been one. Camp Ashraf was subjected to extreme harassment under the Maliki regime. Loudspeakers surrounded the camp, bombarded the residents with death threats. The camp itself was attacked in 2009 and 2011 by Iraqi security forces, with 9 civilians killed in 2009 and 34 people, unarmed people, killed in 2011, and hundreds more wounded. An American military unit was ordered away from the camp only hours before that attack began. Someone in our government then must have known about the attack and that it was coming and wanted our troops out of the way, thus violating an American pledge to protect the camp. I have never been able to find out who that was and who gave the orders not to even investigate this situation. There are still those in government who think we must get along with the Maliki regime despite Mr. Maliki's misdeeds and his grab for authoritarian power, as well as his alignment with the mullah dictatorship in Iran. I am not among them. Maliki has proven he cannot be trusted and must be dealt with accordingly. Perhaps that's why he kicked me out of his country the last time I was there. The most recently, and the 6th convoy of residents being moved, had over 20 people in this convoy is being moved from Camp Ashraf to Camp Liberty. Over 20 of those people were beaten by Iraqi security forces who were also stealing personal possessions owned by those residents. Many of those attacked had broken bones and required hospital care. I was sickened to learn that the U.S. State Department put out a statement after this melee on August 27th that the beatings, despite these beatings, hailing that mission as a safe arrival of the 6th convoy of approximately 400 Camp Ashraf residents, and no mention was made to the violence inflicted on the residents. Indeed, the State Department claimed the government of Iraq has made considerable efforts to achieve a peaceful and secure resolution for the residents of Camp Ashraf. The United Nations and the U.S., it appears, are misleading the public about what the heck is happening in Iraq. And it's time we get to the truth, and that's why we are trying to have this briefing and hearing today, and hopefully to find out what that truth is and hold certain parties accountable for their actions. Thank you very much. And now my Congresswoman Chu is not a member of this subcommittee, but you are certainly welcome to offer an opening statement and to join us in this briefing and in the hearing.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. First, I want to thank you, Mr. Bowmedra, for being here today. It takes so much courage to quit your job because of your belief that your employer is not doing what is right. And it takes even more courage to come before us and before the rest of the world to talk publicly about it. I have to admit that I was shocked when I read your op-ed in The Hill last month. For months we've been hearing from both the UN and from U.S. officials about the conditions at Camp Liberty, and we've heard them say that it was adequate. So to hear a different story from you, an outsider who's been there and visited, is very critical to our understanding about this extremely important issue. And it makes me extremely disappointed in the conduct of U.S. officials who've been telling a very different story. I'm here today because I strongly believe that we must do all that we can to protect the people of Camp Ashraf from harm. After 2 deadly attacks at Camp Ashraf, I do not have faith that the violence is behind us. Reports of interference and misconduct at Camp Liberty only further shake my belief that we will find a peaceful resolution to this problem. But like you, I'm committed to ensuring the well-being of the residents at Camp Liberty. So thank you again for being here, and I hope that by doing that we will have a better outcome in the months ahead.
Thank you very much, and it's good to have you with us today. If you have an opening statement now, and for the opening of the actual hearing itself, you're welcome to proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will take the opportunity to speak twice then, since you just gave it to me. Thank you for being here. 2 issues are involved, I think, today. One is the treatment of people and how they're being treated and who is to blame for their mistreatment. The Maliki government, the United States, the UN, all of the above, none of the above, or a combination. The other issue is more far-reaching. The designation of the MEK as a foreign terrorist organization. And I hope we are able to talk about both of those today. The first one. I was with you, Mr. Chairman, last year when you and I both were evicted from Iraq. We were evicted from Iraq because we had the audacity, the nerve, to go and ask Mr. Maliki, we would like to see the people in Camp Ashraf. And he said, no way you will see those people. So, of course, he had something to hide. He had the truth to hide about how these people, real people, were being treated by the Maliki government, with the United States complicit, in my opinion. And he was so infuriated with your request that we go visit these people that he just told us to leave his country, which we eventually did on our own. Now those folks are being moved to Camp Liberty, and we hear the same song and dance, oh, all is well here in Iraq with the residents of Camp Ashraf, now Camp Liberty. You know, I was a judge for a long time. I sent people to prison who actually did bad things. And while in prison, those individuals got to visit with their families. They got running water. They got to visit with their lawyers. Those things aren't occurring in Camp Liberty. And these people are not criminals. These people are not in a prison. They are supposed to be taken to this staging area so they can be removed from the country on their own. But they're not being treated even as we treat criminals. They are actually, in my opinion, in a concentration camp and being treated worse than they were in Camp Ashraf. That ought not to be. And Mr. Chairman, I'm asking you, if you would, and I'm volunteering to go with you to Camp Liberty, making the request to go and see what it's like. Let us in to see these people, and we will make our own determination and tell the world about it. However we do that, I don't know. But you know people. We can get in. And I'm making that request through you, Mr. Chairman. The other issue, since there is no liberty in Camp Liberty, is the designation of the MEK. Maliki told us the reason that he was treating the people in Camp Ashraf the way he was treating them was because this country labels those folks as a foreign terrorist organization. And he is treating them as foreign terrorists. And that's why he is, I think, treating them so poorly. we have to address that issue, and hopefully the State Department will remove that designation, which we will talk about more later. Thank you for being here, and thank you for spreading a little truth on the situation in Camp Liberty.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. I think that if someone had committed a crime against my family, I'd want them tried in your court. We do have with us for the briefing, and then we will proceed with an official hearing, Mr. Boomdra. Okay, I'm going to get that right. He became chief of the United Nations UNAMI Human Rights Office in Iraq in January of 2009. Part of his work was to monitor the human rights and humanitarian situation of Camp Ashraf. He was also an advisor to the UN Secretary General's Special Representative to Iraq. He resigned these posts earlier this year because of what he believes as being a UN failure to protect the human rights and humanitarian conditions of the Ashraf residents. An argument he laid out in the issue of the Hill newspaper, August 22nd, and which he will elaborate here today. He graduated from the University of London in 1980, and from 1980 to 1990, he was teaching law at the University of Constantine, that's in Algeria. In 1991, he left Algeria and moved to the United Kingdom, where he worked as the editor of the African Journal for International and Comparative Law and Deputy Secretary General of the African Society for International and Comparative Law. In 2004, he served as regional director for the Penal Reform International, which is based in Amman, Jordan, and from there he moved to the United Nations. I would like to echo my colleagues' praise for your moral stand, and that you were willing to leave a position in order to maintain your own personal standards of morality, and that speaks very well of you. We're here to hear, I know you have some things to tell us today that will help us understand that situation in Camp Ashraf, and you may proceed with your testimony.